The familiar sting of effort fills my lungs as I struggle through another rep. One more, always one more. I've done this 1,000 times before. That tipping point where your body is yelling stop and your mind is whispering keep going. This space, this boundary line between comfort and development, this is where life really happens. Observe your hands for a moment. Truly observe them. These same hands that grip your phone, type out your texts, do the mundane tasks of your day, they hold within them the potential to recast your whole life. But only if you're willing to use them to do more than comfort permits. I recall vividly my first day of earnest training. My muscles shook, my skill lost its precision, and my mind was filled with uncertainty. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this, that voice urged. You know the voice. The one speaking to you now and saying that change is too hard, that settling where you are is sufficient. That voice has a name. It's called comfort, and it's the most deceitful temptress you will ever meet. When I established my first martial arts school in America, I was told I was mad. Americans don't want to learn Chinese martial arts. They said, stick with what you know, teach the traditional way. Their words were nothing more than echoes of that same comfort speaking through them. If I had listened, if I had played it safe and stayed where I felt comfortable, all that I went on to accomplish would have been nothing more than potential. Comfort constructs walls and refers to them as shelters. It builds boundaries and refers to them as limits. It builds prisons and guarantees security. And the most sinister thing about comfort, it feels good. It feels right, it feels safe. But let me ask you this. When you reflect back on your most significant life as yet, were the moments of greatest expansion in ease, or in struggle that pushed you through it? When did you learn what you were truly capable of, through an easy go of it, an ordeal? I'm not referring to those physical challenges, although they can be great teachers. I'm referring to when you took a chance and looked foolish to learn something. When you expressed an opinion knowing that it could be shot down. When you made the choice that frightened you but beckoned something greater than fear. Most folks go their whole lives trying not to be uncomfortable, unaware that discomfort is exactly where change occurs. They build whole theories about remaining stationary. I'm too old. I don't know the right people. That's unrealistic for me. These are the slogans of a heart that has lost itself to the sweet poison of comfort. The truth, progress and comfort cannot exist together. They're enemies, like water and fire. Where one exists, the other suffers. This isn't philosophy, it's physics. The concept of progressive overload doesn't only work in developing muscle, but in every aspect of human development. Without resistance, there is no strength. Without challenge, there is no evolution. I recall practicing with wood dummies for hours on end until my forearms were raw and bleeding. My instructor would instruct me again, and I would keep going even in pain. Not because I liked hurting, but because I recognized that beyond the pain was ability I could gain in no other way. Your current life, your strengths, your connections, your accomplishments, all those are the product of the discomfort you've been willing to suffer through. And all of them are constrained by the discomfort you've been afraid to confront. Consider this, the relationship that requires honest discussion but sits in unspoken tension because the truth could hurt. The career that is stuck because acquiring new skills would involve acknowledging you don't know it all. The dream that's collecting dust because going after it could entail failure. Comfort is the greatest enemy to greatness, not because ease is evil, but because growth requires friction. A sword will not be sharpened unless it is ground on the stone. A pearl will not be produced without irritation to the oyster. And you will never become who you are meant to be without bumping up against the edges of who you already are. Listen closely now. I'm going to tell you something that it took me years of meditation and struggle to realize. The awkwardness that you experience when confronted with difficulty isn't a sign to turn back, it's a sign to move forward. That sense of inadequacy, of doubt, of terror, it's not alerting you to danger. It's signaling to you that you're on the verge of change. In Hollywood, rejection piled upon rejection. Too Chinese for Americans to accept. Too American to pass for Chinese. Every no was a gateway of doubt, a chance to go back to what I knew, to where I was valued and respected. But I knew those emotions not as indications to go back, but as indicators that I was precisely where growth required me to be, in the unfamiliar, in the uneasy, in the spot where new horizons unfold. Most individuals never reach their potential not due to a lack of ability, but because they are unwilling to be uncomfortable, to take a risk, to fail, to stand bare in front of their own limitations and say, "These too shall be overcome." This reluctance does not come suddenly. It is a gradual acquiescence, an incremental opting for safety over challenge, for stability over potential, until one morning you wake up and find your life has contracted to fit inside the space of what is safe. Let me speak to you of water, my friend. Water doesn't look for ease. Water doesn't go around things. Water doesn't give up when the road gets tough. Water flows, it adjusts, it goes on, nowhere, sometimes slow and patient, sometimes with crushing pressure, but always, always in motion. Be water in your treatment of discomfort. Do not fight it. Do not resist it. Go with it. See its intention. Realize that the block is not in your way. It is your way. I built Jeet Kune not as a dogmatic system of movements to memorize, but as a philosophy of improvisation, of utilizing no way as way. It wasn't just about fighting, it was about living, about seeing that evolution doesn't come from discovering the ideal method, but from letting go of that which does not work, from continually testing yourself against reality, from tolerating the pain of doubt as the cost of evolution. Consider how many times you've learned the most. I'll bet they weren't moments of comfort and ease. They were moments of challenge, of struggle, of extending yourself further than you believed was possible. The task that tested your limits, the relationship that led you to see your own imperfections, the loss that proved your true mettle. Comfort whispers, seductive lies. You've earned a break. You've done enough. You're fine as you are. And sometimes these things are true. Rest is necessary. Satisfaction is healthy. Self-acceptance is vital. But comfort becomes dangerous when it becomes a permanent residence rather than a temporary refuge. I conditioned my body to react to displeasure not with resistance but with curiosity. Not, how can I get away from this feeling? But, what is this feeling trying to teach me? This tiny shift from shying away from discomfort to welcoming it as a teacher turns everything around. It converts roadblocks into friends, challenges into chances. Now I want you to consider the unease you've been shying away from, the discussion you've been putting off, the chance you've been afraid to take, the transformation you've been putting off. What if, just what if, beyond that unease is the very thing you've been looking for? What if your potential, your happiness, your purpose is lying on the opposite side of that discomfort? What if all that's keeping you from your potential is your refusal to be uncomfortable? The martial artist who desists from training when his muscles ache never uncovers his maximum potential. The artist who desists from creating when criticism arrives never finds her unique voice. The leader who desists from innovating when the threat of failure arises never creates anything of lasting worth. I've watched too many individuals live half-lives, shadowed versions of themselves, because they've opted for the guarantee of comfort over the potential of growth. They've compromised on mediocrity instead of fought against their ceiling. Don't be one of them. Don't accept the life that comfort would lead you to, stable, secure, and eventually unfulfilling. Instead, accept the life that challenge offers, dynamic, real, and true to your highest potential. Remember this: discomfort is fleeting, regret is lasting, the hurt of growing up passes, the hollowness of unrealized potential lasts. As I was growing up as a martial artist, I came up with an exercise I referred to as the uncomfortable 10. I would select 10 moments every day where I would consciously opt for discomfort, to stand longer in a stance than I wished, to approach someone intimidating, to work on a technique that revealed my vulnerabilities. It wasn't masochism. It was conditioning my mind to identify discomfort not as a cue to halt, but as a cue that something significant was taking place. Try it yourself. Not 10 times if that is too much. Begin with one intentional decision every day to step outside of comfort, to risk, to expand, to experience the edge of your ability and nudge a little further. Perhaps it's standing up in that meeting when your heart is pounding at the thought. Perhaps it's having that awkward conversation you've been putting off. Perhaps it's finally taking on that project that thrills and scares you. One decision, every day, to opt for growth rather than comfort. This is not about the big gestures or dramatic overhaul. It is about the small, everyday decisions to accept discomfort as the cost of becoming who you are made to be. The compound interest of these decisions is the distinction between a life of silent resignation and one of ongoing becoming. I recall one student who approached me upset over his progress. "I've trained for years," he said, "but I'm still not there yet." I invited him to demonstrate his forms, his technique. They were accurate, technically sound, wholly sufficient. And there lay the trouble. He had grown complacent with sufficiency. He had ceased driving into the pain of improvement. "Your methods are good," I said to him, "but they are lacking in emotion. They are lacking in the passion of a person who is willing to risk being imperfect in order to explore something new." He departed, muddled, but came back the next day with a question that indicated he was starting to get it. How do I rediscover that edge? How do I get used to feeling uncomfortable? The response I provided to him is the same one I offer you today. You never get used to discomfort. You just learn to understand its worth. You gain the insight to realize that the route to mastery in anything goes straight through the country of discomfort, not around it. Think about it this way. Comfort is like staying in shallow water. It's safe. You can see the bottom. You can easily stand. But all the wonders of the ocean, the colorful corals, the mysterious creatures, the sense of boundless possibility, those are found in the deep water, where your feet can't touch bottom, where currents might challenge you, where you must truly swim. Most people spend their lives splashing in the shallows and wondering why they feel unfulfilled. They gaze longingly at the deep water, but never venture beyond where they can safely stand. And that's a choice. A valid choice, perhaps, but one with consequences. The reality is, expansion occurs at the edges of your comfort zone, not inside. Learning occurs when you encounter what you don't know, not when you practice what you do. And strength comes through lifting what's heavy, not what's light. That's as much true for your spirit as it is for your body. I drove myself relentlessly in training not for the sake of pain, But because I knew that my real adversary was not the individual I could potentially encounter in battle, it was the aspect of myself that preferred to remain cozy, that dreaded challenge, that was satisfied with good enough. And let me say something, that voice never really goes away. Even after all those years of training, of meditation, of intentional development, that voice continues to whisper, "You've done enough. You can stop now. This is too hard." The only difference is now I know that voice not as my guardian, but as my inhibitor. It's not talent or luck or the breaks. It's the willingness to continually, intentionally, consistently opt for the pain of expansion over the comfort of stability. I've watched people with incredible natural talent do nothing because they shun discomfort. And I've watched people with limited gifts do extraordinary things because they welcome challenge as the gateway to becoming more than they had been. Now, let me say something in particular. This isn't about being a martyr to discomfort. It's not about pushing yourself to the point of breakdown, about disrespecting your body's messages, about wearing yourself out to a nub in some misguided show of hardness. That's not strength, that's stupidity. Real strength lies in recognizing when to push and when to rest, from recognizing that recovery is equal to effort. That growth is sustainable from cycles of challenge and rebirth, and not from relentless pressure. The martial artist who never takes a break soon ends up hurt and cannot train at all. The businessman who never gives up soon makes errors due to fatigue. The artist who never recharges soon runs dry of ideas. Wisdom is understanding the difference between the discomfort that builds up and the discomfort that tears down, between constructive challenge and destructive strain, between resisting that makes stronger and resisting that breaks. This discernment comes with experience, with knowledge of self, with true reflection. It comes from approaching your development not as a chaotic dash, but as a reflective one. From hearing your body and your soul with as much diligence as you listen to your plan. But don't make any mistake in the limits of what is sustainable, what is healthy, what is for your long-term growth. The path of tomorrow will always be through pain, always. I recall observing students quit their training just as they were about to break through. They would hit that plateau where the progress stalled, where the moves that once were no longer felt smooth again, where doubt crept in and familiarity called them back to what they understood. Those who struggled through that discomfort found that what seemed like an end turned out to be a beginning, the beginning of greater understanding, of body knowledge, of authentic skill, as opposed to imitation. Those who backed away never found out what was on the other side of that fleeting hardship. The same phenomenon repeats itself in all areas of human effort. The author who leaves the manuscript when the words do not come readily. The romance that falters at the first real disagreement. The career switch reversed when problems on the job begin. The spiritual discipline abandoned when it starts revealing painful truths. In each case, what's abandoned isn't just the specific pursuit. It's the growth that awaited on the other side of discomfort. The becoming that was possible only through persisting when persistence was difficult. Listen to me well now. The individual you are capable of being is on the other side of struggle, not ease, not comfort, not the road of least resistance. That individual, that more capable, wiser, stronger you, is tempered and the fire of difficulties accepted, not avoided. I want you to consider for a moment that you have two potential futures. In one, you opt for comfort whenever you can. You don't take risks. You play it safe. You value security above possibility. In the other, you actively pursue development. You make informed risks. You learn in a continuous process. You opt for possibility over certainty. Now project both of yourselves 5 years from now, 10 years, 20. Who are you in each scenario? What do you experience? What abilities do you acquire? What difference do you make? What regrets do you hold? The distance between those two versions of you, that's the real price of selecting comfort over expansion. And with time, that distance grows. The more you opt for comfort, the farther your potential will recede. I've witnessed this in my own life, in the lives of the students I've taught, in the tales of so many others who went with the discomfort of growth or shied away from it. The rhythm is straightforward. Those who consistently opt for challenge rather than comfort, growth rather than security, becoming over being, they are the ones who look back on their lives with contentment, not regret. This is not to say their journeys are smooth, not at all. They stumble, they fail, they doubt. But they've learned the greatest skill of all, the ability to press on in spite of these things, to leverage resistance as fuel instead of a stop sign. I want you to cultivate this ability, to be able to identify discomfort not as something to be shunned, but something to be worked through. To look at challenges not as walls to your advancement, but as the actual material of your progress. When I was constructing Jeet Kune Do, I had to abandon many of the techniques that had taken me years to master, techniques that were comfortable, that were a part of who I was as a martial artist. This wasn't pleasant. Each abandoned movement was like losing a piece of me. But I recognized that in order to find out what worked, I had to be prepared to give up what was only familiar. This is the essence of growth. Not just adding new capabilities, but being willing to release what no longer serves your evolution, even if those things once defined you. Even if letting them go feels like loss rather than liberation. Your comfort zone is not merely a collection of habits. It's an identity. It's who you think you are. And stretching out of that comfort means not simply doing new things, but being a new person. One who perceives himself or herself as being able to do more, as worthy of more, as accountable for more. This shift in identity is maybe the most uncomfortable aspect of growth. It means dying to a former version of yourself, but not yet fully being a new one. It means being in that liminal space where you're no longer who you used to be, but not yet who you will become. It means living with the pain of not knowing, of not yet being. Few will accept this discomfort. They would rather have the familiarity of the constricted identity than the potential of the broadened one. They opt for the familiar restrictions of who they have been rather than the untried possibilities of who they could be. But you're not. I can see that in you. The fact that you're still listening, still not shutting down on these ideas, but instead continuing to connect with them, tells me you're a person who feels there's more to life than ease.